But why is it always you transforming into Beyonce and then the other day lumberjack?
You need something. Okay, Brooke is a bikie. Brooke, what would you be like as a bikie? Give me your bikie impersonation. Impersonation.
Impersonation.
What the fuck isn't it? Hey Siri, what's an impersonation?
Hey Siri.
It's a Pokemon.
Tell Matt to
Great.
shut the fuck up. Welcome to Not So PG. I'm Brooke Blurton. My pronouns are she and her.
I'm Matty Mills. My pronouns are he and him.
Right at the top of this episode, we'd like to acknowledge the custodians of the land on which we record this podcast.
For me, that's the Gadigal People of the Eora Nation.
And for me, that's the Wajak Numak people here in Perth. I'm in studio. It's so exciting. I'm home. And let's get into this, Matty.
I'm so excited for you. You are the furthest away from me that you can possibly be without leaving the country.
I'm on an island, separate.
Oh, how does it feel to be home?
So good. I haven't had the time to catch up with family yet, but I will very, very soon. I'm only here for a short period of time, but then back in Melbourne and then back for Christmas holidays, and I honestly cannot wait. I'm going to have so much sun. I got sunburnt. Brooke Blurton, got sunburnt for the first time ever in my life.
Oh, because
literally.
You've been in cold, dingy East Coast Australia, and now you're in like the most beautiful, warm climate. Oh, I'm jealous.
I mean, you should be, because it was like a 30-degree day here the other day, and I was in the sun maybe like an hour, and I got roasted like a little hot chook. And I can't believe it.
Hot chook, Brooke.
I mean, she's a hot chicken.
Why did the chicken cross the road? To get sunburnt.
You and your dad jokes. I mean, dad jokes are my favourite. But anyway, so it's been beautiful here in Perth. I'm so excited to be in Bulu. Like it's amazing. And honestly, seeing Mob as well, a lot of people came to the book tour and the book launch, and I'm just going to relax and catch up with friends and family. And also, I feel like I'm a little bit biased, but the coffee has been way better than I ever imagined, actually. I moved to Melbourne for the good coffee, and it's actually here in Perth. So who knows? I might make a comeback to Perth.
For the coffee. I'm moving.
Just for the coffee. And the weather,
I'm
obviously.
moving home for the weather and the coffee. But you were papped with Domenica from MAFS. Was that a planned, meeting?
I've had a very unusual week. I was just at the beach, and Dom and I had chatted, and she was in Perth, and we went to the beach together. Did not know that there was paps in Perth. Didn't know that they existed. Never been papped in Perth. Next minute, papped. Now, can we just read the headline? There's been 2 Daily Mail articles.
Okay,
from
bring
Perth.
them up. I want to hear these.
This is the most that there's been in the last 6 months per se. I haven't had anything really to offer the Daily Mail, because all I do is go for walks and my dog and get coffee and work from home.
And kiss boys in public, but whatever.
I mean, I can't confirm nor deny.
Yes, no comments. No more comments.
No comments. So being in Perth, this is the most I've been papped ever in my bloody Perth life. So the first headline was Barefoot Bachelorette.
Oh my gosh. That is the new show on NITV for sure.
Well, that's actually my business, so that's how it's kind of hilarious.
Yeah,
it's very fitting. Thank you, Daily Mail, for the free marketing. And the other headline, which I'm just going to bring up 2 seconds.
But can I just ask a serious question? I really want to know the answer to this. When you wake up in the morning, do you sometimes just look at the mirror and say to yourself, how the fuck am I this hot? I saw the fucking photos of you at the beach, and I'm like, this girl. I'm like, these bitches could never.
I mean, no, I don't look at myself in the mirror and be like, you know what? You are sizzling, saucy, sexy.
Girl, you should.
No.
You fucking should.
This is some of the headlines and what people have been describing in the article. It's like the bikini-clad pair soaked up the sun at Cottesloe Beach as the temperature sizzled to 30 degrees on Wednesday. And they just like describe it. I'm like, what the fuck? We just literally just went to the beach.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in definitely good company. I was right on the beach with Kate Walsh and her husband. So that was kind of cute. Grey's Anatomy, if anyone doesn't know who that is.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
What are they doing there?
She lives in Perth. Kate Walsh lives in Perth, and she's really beautiful from what I've heard around town.
That's a choice.
I know. I mean, only the best come out of Perth, must I admit.
Well, that sounds like a really nice few days that you've been home. Like, I mean, beach, sun. Have you finished your book tour?
Done and dusted, and it's so good. I'm going out to community very soon. I'm going back up to Carnarvon to deliver some books, but also hopefully see some of my old schools. It's going to be like a nice little walk down memory lane, but it's just nice to kind of close that chapter and then, like literally close that chapter.
Good pun there. But your book got stolen from my house.
What do you mean?
So my mum came over and she was like, I'll be taking this. And I was like, oh, okay. And now she calls me every day and tells me what page she's up to and how much she loves it and how wonderful you are and how proud your family must be of you. And I'm like, yeah, she's deadly.
I mean, does this not inspire you to write your story, Matty?
I think I will one day, I think that there will be a time for that. At the moment, I'm focusing on hopefully getting my own TV show up and running at the start of next year. So I'm currently in the talks to develop 3 episodes of my own show, which is really exciting.
Oh, okay, big shot.
I know, but you know what, sis? Like, this has been in my head for years. Like, this idea for this show has been in my head for years, and I think it's the perfect time to do it. So we're currently trying to lock off some stuff before the end of the year so that the sort of first half of next year I can focus on that. So I'm excited about that, and that's all I'm saying about it.
I mean, I'm going to say it now. I feel very honoured to know you because I know that you're going to do big things. And then, you know what? Just remember me, please. Just remember me.
Please.
Remember me and Elise when you're a big-time movie star and, going to Hollywood because, you know what? Remember where you come from.
Yeah, remember where you come from.
Nova podcast.
Love it. Speaking of remembering where we come from, there was an incredible episode of Insight this week. And Insight is a program that's on SBS, and it's normally a deep dive into a certain topic. But this week was all about Indigenous identity, and it was hosted by Carla Grant. And basically, the episode was all about how blackfellas across Australia identify, how they come to identify. But it has come off the back of recent census data. So in the 2021 census data, there has been a boom in people identifying as First Nation across Australia. There has been a 25% increase. So at the moment, there is supposedly nearly a million people, so upwards of 800,000 First Nations of people across our country. But data actually suggests that the real number should sit somewhere between 500 and 600,000. So there is close to 200 or 300,000 people who are identifying as Aboriginal who probably, 1, aren't First Nations, but then 2, even if they are, they don't have a connection to community and they're identifying so that they could personally benefit from it. There were people from all different walks of life, all different tribes and cultural leaders in the audience. And so if people haven't seen Insight, it is a interaction between the host and the audience members to do a deep dive into a topic and have a conversation around a specific issue or topic. I did know a couple of people in the audience and I could see some of their frustrations, but I think it's really interesting in today's day and age where people are identifying as First Nations and to actually be, well, I know this is for New South Wales, there is like a 3-point system. If you want to identify as Aboriginal, there's this 3-point system that's currently in place, and it's through a lot of the local Aboriginal land councils. You have to identify as a First Nations person, then you have to prove your connection to community or an ancestor. So you have to actually show proof of connection.
My opinion on this is that at points it can be very, very problematic, and as as we know that, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people only making up 3.3%, and that was obviously what was documented, and that was in the data from I don't know how many years ago from the census. And so we know that it's very low, and that kind of extends from obviously colonization and the history, and then also, assimilation, all of those problematic issues. The thing that I have an issue with is that people benefiting off being identifying as First Nations and benefiting off that, because it could take away so much. Mm-hmm. And I know that a lot of people are late identifying and finding that they do have a link to First Nations because I guess stolen generation was an absolute thing, and that still exists, unfortunately, to this day. Children are still being taken. There's no but to it. That just exists. And so I know that, people are identifying late, but there are also people who are manipulating the system, from what it sounds like, and taking advantage. And, a lot of programs are specifically put out there for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander to help close the gap. There's a huge gap between health, and we're trying to minimise that. And so these programs are put in place to do that. And if someone who doesn't identify as First Nations and is taking advantage of that, that means that one less person is getting that. Yeah. And so for me, that feels like it's very disappointing to hear. And I think we do, as First Nations people, do question ourselves so many times, not our identity, because if you identify as First Nations, you are very proud and you are, you hold on to that. I know myself, a lot of people throw things like, oh, you're Aboriginal? Oh, I didn't know that. You don't look Aboriginal. Fuck off. So,
that was something that was actually discussed on the episode, how people look and how that can correlate to discrimination when it comes to people finding, identifying. But I think that there were so many different parts of this topic that were unpacked, and one of them was specifically when people identify late in life, and the word that was put out there was, these people are on their journey. What I have to say to that, what I have to say to that.
Sorry, I don't want me to laugh. Oh my God.
I know, and journey in quotations. But what I will say to that is that it's a very real experience for those people who have grown up, maybe because they were a part of the stolen generation, or maybe because one of their parents were a part of the stolen generation, and then they've grown up with outside of their communities and possibly within a community that isn't First Nation. But what I say to that is, if you are identifying late in life, you have to accept that your cultural knowledge and your cultural connection, both with culture and community, is at an all-time low. So it's like saying to somebody, this might sound silly, but if you identify today, tomorrow you are a 1 day old Aboriginal person. You're not 41, even though you're 41, you're 1 day. So you have a lot of learning to do. And I think that that's something that, I wish that these people would be able to take on, because the reality is that if you're identifying so late in life, you don't hold the knowledge, you don't hold the culture. So yes, you are technically an Aboriginal person because of your blood, but do you have connection? No. And to build that connection, you have to make sure that you ground yourself in community. And if you're somebody whose community is in the western part of New South Wales and you've lived in the city for 40 years and you've realised through a DNA test that you've had an Aboriginal ancestry, and you realise that your mob are Wiradjuri, what you need to do, the start of your journey, is actually building the foundations of knowledge of your people and communities, and not just going out there and saying, I'm an Aboriginal person because I found out a week ago, and then using the resources that actually are used for people who have been disadvantaged and affected by colonisation. The reality is if you were not identified as an Aboriginal, if you haven't identified as an Aboriginal person up until that point, you probably haven't been discriminated against. You probably haven't felt the effects of colonisations, because exactly, you haven't lived the Black experience. So no, you do not have the right then to use the resources that put in place for blackfellas. You need to do the groundwork. And I also think that, like, it comes, there's so many other avenues that why people identify. And even if there was the shame factor that was, obviously a massive part of, even when I was a young kid, when I was in primary school, I felt sometimes shamed to be a blackfella and always wanted to be something that I wasn't, because I didn't feel accepted a lot of the time. And that comes with my Aboriginal identity, but also with my queer identity. And so, like, until you accept it fully and you feel the pride, like, what I can say is wholeheartedly, the thing that I am most proud of in my life is being an Aboriginal person. Hands down. I don't give a fuck where my career takes me. The thing when I wake up in the morning and think to myself, what am I proud of? That I'm a Kamilaroi man.
Amen to that, brother.
Like, and if you don't have that feeling, go and find it, because it is worth it.
100%. I think identity is so important to the social emotional well-being, and I think we both are so motivated by our culture and so proud of it, because in a world not too long ago, there was a lot of shame around it. There was a lot of shame and there was a lot of discrimination. And where we are now is great, but it can be better. Yeah. And we're getting there. It's a fucking slow slog, but it's us that are putting in the work, making it known, bringing culture to the front and center, and saying, we were here, this is our land. Yeah. And please don't take advantage. I guess, I'm supportive of who come and identify late. I'm supportive of that. I would never say you can't identify. I know that you stand very strong with it, but I'm like, you know what? Just do the work. Yeah. Find yourself, do the work, immerse yourself into culture and country. And who knows? If it makes you feel like you're whole and you're grounded, I'm all for it. Yeah. But just don't take advantage and take that away from First Nations people, because we've already had so much taken away from us. We don't need people to keep doing that.
And what exactly, you hit the nail on the head there, Brooke. And with the episode, one of the main things that the contributors actually said was that if you're identifying as an Aboriginal person because you want to see what you can get, that is the wrong reason to be identifying, because it's about what you can actually give. And it's the total opposite. And that is the foundation of our community. It's about support, love and care for one another. And that goes back thousands of years. But I also what I want to say about, if you are identifying later in life, you absolutely have the right to do that. But what you have to understand is that makes you still a very young Aboriginal person when it comes to cultural knowledge, and you do not get to take up the spaces and positions, especially in the workforce, of identified positions because you identified a week ago. I don't think that you encapsulate the Indigenous or First Nation experience in this country. Yes, you can identify, and I respect everyone who's on their journey, but then to go and be seen as a cultural knowledge holder, it's a big no from me, because there's no way, if you're just identifying, that your people have given you that knowledge. Your people have given you that culture.
Can I make my 2 cents on one thing as well?
Yeah.
Recently, I was actually on TikTok and I received a comment. I posted this video about being Aboriginal and wearing clothing, the Gap clothes, and someone had written, oh, well, you acknowledge that you have a white Australian culture and a Malaysian culture. Why don't you acknowledge them as part of your identity? And that's actually a really good point. I have a grandfather who's actually of Malaysian descent and was an immigrant in this country. So I don't know how he got here because I actually don't know the full story. Unfortunately, he died before I was old enough to know and understand. And he makes a very valid point about my Malaysian culture. Like I say, when I do talks and stuff, I was born from an Aboriginal Malaysian mother and an English dad. And I don't acknowledge particularly the English part of me because, one, my dad is really not in my life, and I would prefer to not acknowledge that because he hasn't contributed to me as a person, as in a way that he hasn't been that nurturing father or that person who I really admire, and I just felt like it's not me cutting it out, it's just me really just acknowledging that that's a part of me, but it's not what I identify with the most. Obviously my First Nations culture is what I identify with the most, because it's my personality, it's my whole being, it's my well-being, it's my groundedness, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, but part of that is also my Malaysian heritage, and the reason why I don't acknowledge that to the best of my ability is because I don't know about it, and that's why I don't identify with it in a way that I can speak so fluently on behalf of like Malaysian people. You know what I mean? It's a part of who I am as a person, and I get probably my petite frame from that and my beautiful olive skin from that, but I grew up in a community, I grew up with mob. That's where I identify, that's who makes me me, and that's as part of me. And so that kind of provides a little bit of context for you to identity, and you know, everyone is on their journey. I get that. And I would love, what to do is to dive deep into finding out where my Malaysian heritage comes from, and what my grandfather's island, where he was born, all that sort of stuff. And I will. That is a journey that I would love to take. But right now I'm not at capacity to do that. But at the time, I'm actually really so centered with who I am as a First Nations person in this country. And I feel like I could do some really awesome work at, knowing that where I come from, my grandmother was very strong with it. And so, that's, to provide an opposite scale of that, you know what I mean?
And you know what? I really believe that, like, First Nations people, yes, there is a lot of us have, British or English blood in us as well. One of the main reasons that I personally don't talk about it or identify strongly with it is because that part of me does not need the care and nurture that my First Nations culture does.
Amen.
And the reality is that I'm trying to rekindle, survive and thrive as a First Nations person. And as a non-First Nations person, I don't need to give that side of me that much attention, because the world does. The whole world does. So it's like, for me, I also, like, I know that my white side, my mum's side, she's English and Irish. I grew up with them being extremely racist to my face about my family all the time. So they've shown me a side of myself that is in me in terms of the bloodline that I don't really want to go there. Like, I don't want to go there, and I don't want to explore that side, because really that side has provided me so much hurt and provided my people so much trauma. So why would I want to stand with non-First Nations people and be like, yes, I'm a part of that as well? Because the reality is they got enough people doing that. So there's only one last thing that I really want to add, and it's about...
Elise, he's big mouth today.
Sorry, I'm just so passionate about...
No, I love it. Keep going.
I'm just so passionate about this topic, because I grew up, when I was a young fella, I was told my dad had died. And to me, that severed my link to my First Nations culture. That created a huge gap for me. So when I was a young kid, I never thought I would be in the position that I am in right now, where my heart is full of pride for my First Nations culture and community. So there is an opportunity there. If you are lost, if you feel like you're not connected to community, go out and find and connect yourself with community, because it will give you the sense of belonging that you absolutely are looking for in life. Like, all these external factors have shit on the feeling of being with community and the pride that you'll feel because of that in your heart.
I have received so many beautiful questions and acknowledgements through writing Big Love about, adding to the list of First Nations authors. And, I finish it off with a letter to myself, and that was really powerful, what people could read and say. I could look at my younger self from hindsight and be like, God, I wish I could have protected you and loved you and made sure that, if you could see yourself now, God, you'd be killing it, and you wouldn't have stressed, you wouldn't have worried, you would have, would have like relaxed a little bit. But it pushed me and it made me so much more driven to get here, and I'm so proud of that younger self. But what would you think of where you are in life now, and what would you tell your younger self?
If I think of younger small Matty, I always think of like the vision that I had for myself. And as a young kid, you may not prioritize connection to community, but as you get older, I feel like that becomes something that you constantly search for. And I would say to my younger self that one day you're going to wake up black and deadly. You're going to walk through the day black and deadly. You are going to live your life black and deadly. And that is what's going to fuel the fire in your heart, because you're black and deadly.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
That's it. That's it. Where's the wine?
This has been such an amazing episode. I do feel like we've unpacked so much. All right. Well, that brings our episode to an end. What an interesting episode it has been. It's been very deep. It's very... yeah. Okay. You put some chopsticks in your mouth. Anyways... Everyone, thank you so much for listening to Not So PG. If you'd like to follow us on socials, you can find us at It's Matty Mills and it's at Brooke Blurton. And if you would like to listen to our other episodes, you can find them at Nova Podcast Official. We'll see you next week. You find deadly and saucy things.
Bye.